There. Right, this is lesson 65 and this is about the environment, the labour market and also competition policy. Right, let's start off with the environment. The Institute of Directors want, as one of their 10 proposals towards the government, wants the government to drop the green agenda because they say that the green agenda costs them money, therefore it makes them less competitive, therefore they sell fewer goods. So they ask for lots of different things like lower corporation tax and greater labour market flexibility, which we're going to come on to in a second or two. But they want them to drop the green agenda. Okay, but I'm just going to bring you some sort of big-ish things about the green agenda in the year 2015. The first of these is fracking. Now, fracking is shale gas, has been very, very influential in America. The Boston Consulting Group paper of 2014, where their energy prices have fallen by 35% in America and Mexico. Whereas the energy prices in Poland, they've gone up by 100%, and also they've gone up by a lot in China. So, fracking is a big thing, and some people believe it will make the UK self-sufficient in energy, which is really, really important, and it would also help our manufacturing sector because we would then get cheaper energy as well. And that could really kickstart the whole economy. Now, the thing against fracking is that it pollutes water and everything else, so it's quite a controversial thing. Personally, I'm in favour of it. I think it's a good thing, even though I'm an environmentalist, because it's less harmful than oil. And I think during that time, we can make policies that will help us move towards the green agenda. The next thing that's come in is carbon emissions reporting. This is for any firm over a turnover of about £7 million per year. So they have to produce a report on their carbon emissions. So in some respects, it's a bit like Kaplan and Norton's balanced scorecard, that they have to say how many carbon emissions that they are producing. Then investors and customers can look at that and say, hang on a second, I would rather not buy goods from that particular company because they have a high carbon emissions. The fines for environmental offences are going to be higher. Sometimes they're going to be in the millions of pounds rather than the tens and 20s and 30s of thousands of pounds. There's also one of the biggest environmental issues today is the amount of water we have in the whole world. So there's going to be policies now that look at how much water a company is using, and if it is using too much water, then it should offset that by creating policies that help to go out and create water. And finally, we have the green subsidy schemes which are available for homeowners, although that hasn't so far been particularly effective. So the big argument, as I mentioned earlier on, is with the Institute directors who say that if you have tougher sanctions, this will therefore raise the cost of British industry, therefore make us uncompetitive. However, in an inconvenient truth by Al Gore, he makes a very, very good point that if you have tougher regulations, it forces companies to innovate, and therefore they come up with better ideas, and therefore in the long term you can actually save them money. And there's a report out by the management consultants A.T. Kearney which says that 16 out of 18 industries which adopted green technology found out that they actually save money by adopting those processes. So there are going to be tougher sanctions in there. It could also mean higher costs. It could also, in the long term, it may also help to save energy. And we've also got the big idea of fracking, which will have a huge impact upon the UK if the UK decides to go down that route. Lesson 65, and we've just looked at the environment. We're now going to have a quick look at the labour market. Now, the UK is number one in Western Europe in terms of having a flexible labour market. What does that mean? It means that it's cheaper in the UK to hire people and also to fire people. Now, that might seem as if it's a bad thing, although a lot of people are pointing out that this is a good thing. And the major reason for that is that in the UK our unemployment rate is 6.9%, whereas in Europe it's 11.9%, so it's almost double. And that is because it's much easier to get rid of people, but also much easier for firms to actually go out and employ people. So what does a flexible labour market mean? Well, it means that in the UK, for example, there are some jobs with 0-hour contracts, and that means a firm will only employ you dependent upon the number of hours that they want to give. Now, that may be 40 or 50 hours a week, but it may be 10 hours a week. Now, therefore, it makes it much more likely that firms will employ you. Am I in favour of this? Yes, I probably am. Because particularly for youngsters, it just gives them a taste of work. And if they're good at their job, then obviously they're going to be kept on. So it's easy to hire and fire people, as I've just said. The UK is slowly getting around to the idea of having much lower taxes. Now, the best example of this is that you can earn £10,000 in the UK tax-free. You have to pay national insurance contributions, but you won't pay any income tax on that amount of money. Our income tax rate is only 20%, which is reasonably low, and you only pay, so if you earn £41,000 a year, right, you earn £10,000 tax-free, and the next £31,000 you are taxed at 20%. And also it depends upon a country's training, because if a person's well trained, then of course they're much more likely to get a job. So there is a skills gap involved in this. Particularly, I spend quite a lot of time looking at the KPMG, the 10 megatrends, and one of their big things is that employers need to employ people with the right sort of skills, particularly machinists, programming. Those sorts of skills are going to come to the fore in the future. And so this is it. So the UK has a pretty flexible labour market. Now, people will complain about that and saying that the trade unions have less power than they once did, so therefore they can't protect their workers. The other side of the coin is, though, is that more people will be employed. The big issue in the UK is a lot of these people are now employed on pretty low wages. So it may not even be as much as a living wage. So there's a lot of very cheap labour within the UK. But that also will make us more internationally competitive. And when we talk about the KPMG report, the Boston Consulting and the KPMG, the 10 megatrends and the Boston Consulting Group, one of the major things in there is that the UK may well become a rising regional power in terms of its, primarily maybe because of its labour market, and maybe also if it introduces fracking as well. So this is the labour market, lesson 65. Is lesson 65, and this is the aim of competition policy. And the aim of competition policy is to promote competition and to make markets work better. Now, in a sense, competition policy is about having a great big regulator who will come down on firms that are not fulfilling the requirements of the law. And it's often that the threat of that can make sure that firms behave in a more competitive fashion. Now, if you do all these things on here, then the whole aim of competition policy is that you do get wider consumer choice, technological innovation, and that often occurs because if you create competition, there's more likely to be innovative behaviour and effective price competition between firms. So they specifically look at 4 areas, and this is cartels, price fixing, market liberalisation, introducing fresh competition into a market. So they'll obviously stop the price fixing, they'll want new firms to enter the market. It also, a big one these days is that the government doesn't give too much help to businesses, so therefore it will also watch in terms of state aid, and watch if firms become too big and too powerful and too dominant, then the regulators will move in. Now in the UK we have the Office of Fair Trade and the Competition Commission, but we also have the European Union Competition Commission, and they will basically fine firms if they find out that they are abusing their position. The whole idea of competition policy is to protect the public interest, so is to work in favour of the consumer. So UK firms and European firms have to be aware of the European Competition Commission as well as the Office for Fair Trading. Lesson 65.